How can you go from that, playing that well, to playing this poorly? Because I put it on my... Like I put it on my poll, and I said it at the beginning of this. Those 2 games back-to-back are the worst performances I've seen from City since, I think, Pellegrini's second season, probably. We're talking over 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm not talking about output. I'm not talking about shots on target, any of that. I'm talking about desire and actual looking like you want to win the game, looking like there's a chance you can win the game. From the first minute against United, you knew we weren't going to win. From the first minute against Bodo Glimt,
as
respectfully...
soon as Harry Maguire hit the bar, I was like, oh, you know what?
You know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't know what's going on at the moment.
But I don't necessarily even thinking that maybe something's already happened behind the scenes that's caused this to happen, but I am thinking to a certain extent maybe what's happening now, it'd be potentially the second time in 2 seasons where Pep's gone winless in like 5, or they're not winless in 5 because he beat Newcastle, but obviously 3 draws in the league, then a loss against United, and then lost in the Champions League now, and then suddenly your 8th game of the Champions League, which by most point you'd want that to be just a free hit like Arsenal's is at home against Karat next weekend, even the way Inter Milan was basically a free hit for Arsenal. Suddenly that's a really important game, and it's the 8th game in the Champions League stage. Like, maybe it could be something where Pep's now thinking, because he's far from confirmed that he'll be here beyond this summer. He could just be burnt out. He could just be burning out, and then he sees this now and he's going, look, they signed a load of new players. My dog's in Bernardo Silva and co. He might be leaving at the end of the season. The other one's Rodri's fading, and the others are hurt. Like, Edison's not there, although Edison needed to go anyway. Donnarumma is now obviously he was phenomenal against United. I cannot believe some of the saves he was picking out at United. He was man of the match until we actually scored.
Yeah, he was unbelievable.
But like, maybe I'm thinking we're getting to the point now where this could be turning Pep's head towards going, you know what, I could just go.
I think there are a few things. I think first of all, he's not going to leave on a bad season. So part of me is like, little part of me is like, maybe slightly glad that we might not win the league or win the Champions League because it means we get more Pep. I don't think he would ever... you know what type of character he is. He's not going to leave when we finish 4th after losing like 11 games in a row. Yeah. That's not going to happen. I think last year he burnt out. We obviously know what happened with his issues off the field as well. That was probably part of it. And I think that last year he probably wanted to leave in the end. And I think something happened, something changed, and he changed his mind. And from January to now, we've spent about 500 million quid, and they're all on players who play in what I would say is the new style of football. Semenyo is a player who Pep would never have bought 10 years ago, ever.
No, not at all.
Mark Gahey, not a player that Pep would have bought. Tajani Reinders, exactly the same. Jeremy Doku, exactly the same. Marmoush, exactly the same.
Why do you say that?
No, but they're not City players, are they? The City players that Pep Guardiola wanted to bring in at the beginning. His first signing was John Stones. Then he brought in Gundogan.
What defines a City player, then?
A City player of that time was a player who was very, very calm under pressure, who would try and kill a team by 1,000 passes, who was incredibly technical on the ball, who you could put him in any situation with 3 players around him. He'd be able to get out of it and just calmly pass it around. Semenyo isn't that at all. He's quite a clunky, fast, strong winger. He's not that type of player at all.
Clunky?
I think he's quite clunky on the ball. He's not as technical as he's not as technical as like your Bernardo Silvas or any of those type of players.
But few people are, to be fair.
No, but it's not. It doesn't stink of a Pep signing, and to me that makes me think that Pep has got excited by the idea of completely reinventing this team. And I think City probably now in the last 2 performances are more at the level of what most of us probably expected us to be like this season. I don't think at the beginning of the season any of us expected for us to challenge. 3-4 months in, as you know, when I first came on here, I was very confident because I thought we are playing very well, and even when we're not playing well, we're picking up points.
But I think to be fair, I'm going to interrupt here slightly. I got the impression, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of what you were saying at the time was based on what you thought would be the inevitable implosion of Arsenal. In fact, you did say that to me on a few occasions. We know what's going to happen. Always happens this time of year. Arsenal will implode, and we will assume the Premier League title from there. But
yeah, I thought that was going to happen. I still think it's not completely beyond the realms of possibility, but I was confident that would happen, and I think I was well within my rights to be confident that it was going to happen because it happened 3 years in a row. So the history and the evidence has suggested.
No, but that doesn't take account of a team that is learning from.
No, it doesn't. No, you're right.
And the consistency is very good.
And I haven't had that.
And that's what wins titles.
And you're right. And I haven't had that feeling from City in a few years, to be fair. I haven't had that. But I think I was well within my rights. Before the Sunderland game, we'd before Man United, we hadn't lost in 13 games. Before the Sunderland game, I think we'd won 9 out of 10 games in a row.
Yeah, let me just
And
get it up.
the Sunderland game, and I know this is like one of those ridiculous things where you can go through each individual game, but let's be totally honest, right? Before this period, if I'd said, would we beat Sunderland? I haven't had that.
And that's
feeling.
what wins title. It's not so good on the eye, not aesthetically pleasing. Everyone's, Arsenal. But their level of consistency is very good.
And I haven't had that.
And that's
feeling.
what wins titles.
And you're right. And I haven't had that feeling from City in a few years, to be fair. I haven't had that. But I think I was well within my rights. Before the Sunderland game, before Man United, we hadn't lost in 13 games. Before the Sunderland game, I think we'd won 9 out of 10 games in a row.
Yeah, let me just
And
get it up.
the Sunderland game, and I know this is like one of those ridiculous things where you can go through each individual game, but let's be totally honest, right? Before this period, if I'd said, would we beat Sunderland, most people on the form that we were on would say yes.
8 in a row. Before
we won 8 in a row.
Game.
I think most people would expect that we would have beaten Sunderland. Most people would have expected we would have beaten managerless Chelsea. Most people would have expected that we would have beaten Brighton at home. If we had won those 3 games instead of drawing them, we would now be top of the league, right?
Yeah.
So I was well within my rights to assume that. I'm well within my rights to assume that we may be able to...
Or no, you'd be 1 point behind.
We'd be 1 point behind, but then I would assume...
Like,
you would have assumed that we would have beaten United. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
good point.
I think realistically, like, when I was looking ahead at those fixtures, I was well within my rights to expect us to win. I could not have foreseen us playing this poorly in 2026.
Yeah.
We haven't won. I mean, I know Newcastle in the semi-final is a meaningful game, but we haven't won a huge game in 2026. We've drawn 3 in the Premier League, lost 1, and we lost 1 in the Champions League, which we actually needed to win to get into that top 8. I couldn't have foreseen that. I do think it is still possible. I think that team that was there...
It's an outside shot now.
It's an outside shot. It's an outside shot, but anything can happen. And look, we've got Wolves on Saturday. Wolves at home on Saturday. I know they're no mugs. I know they haven't lost in 2026.
Super team.
But if you're looking at the Premier League table, a team who is struggling for form, playing someone at home, you want to be playing the team who are bottom of the table.
Yeah.
And if we win that game, the gap closes to 4. Yeah, it's only for 24
sure
hours.
That, you know, with respect, I beg to differ slightly on that because that is a bit of a catch-22 because, yeah, you're right. Playing a team that's bottom of the table, yes, of course, you would rather that than playing a team that is towards the top of the table. However, if you look at Wolves' recent form and the momentum that they're gaining, if you was to even draw against Wolves this weekend, what does that say for your... There
is absolutely no more room for error.
Yeah.
There is no room for error whatsoever.
You have to suddenly be gone from being like done in twice in the space of a week to flawless.
Yeah, we have to be pretty much flawless. And I honestly promise you, and I'd said it on TalkSport actually, which has been clipped up so you can actually look, so you know the truth. I said after the United game, if Arsenal beat Forest, the title is over. You couldn't capitalise on that, which is fine. You still got a point, but 7 points does keep the door ajar when we still have to play you at home. But as I say, flawless from now on. Like basically win every single game from now on. Unless you lose and we draw and we slightly, it's probably not going to happen.
You have to be the single biggest United fan this weekend. Like
I can never support United, and I'm just not even going to watch the game.
Kim, how's Cherky still doing? In the big up Bodo Glimt. He said, how's Cherky still in the Rondo, actually? Sorry, yeah.
Cherky's an unbelievable baller. Everyone's allowed to have a few bad games.
Cunha Bruno, Luke Shaw, Cunha. Oh, what a piece of commentary. He just had a bad game at Old Trafford, didn't he?
They all had a bad game. I thought Cherky was one of our better players who came on at half-time. I thought he was better than Phil Foden, who's just been absolutely awful for the last month.
I was going to say, what's happened to Foden? Because about a couple of months ago, he was scoring in a few games. People saying, right, Foden's back, and yeah, he's a shoe-in for the World Cup squad and all that. What's happening?
He's just, I think, to be completely honest, and I think City fans who don't want to be obviously biased will probably admit it. Like, he is a player who has unbelievable talent, but he is, maybe more than anyone I've known in the City squad, so hot and cold. He's just so hot and cold, and when he's hot, he's so hot, and he looks like England's. He looks like England's best player. He's player of the year. Looks like City's best player. But when he's cold, he's like a complete waste of a player on the pitch. Like I actually don't want him there. Like against United, he did absolutely nothing good. Against Bodo Glimt, he did nothing good. And it feels like he's one of those players, and there are lots of them about who are like confidence players and they thrive off confidence. But for me, it seems a bit deeper with Foden. It feels like when he doesn't have confidence, like he really has no confidence at all. And like he doesn't even try and take a man on. One of the best things about Phil Foden is him receiving the ball from like a centre half or Rodri and going on the half turn and creating loads of space for people through him. For the last 6 weeks, he hasn't done that at all. He gets the ball, he'll just pass it back. Gets the ball, pass it back. He's very weak. So he always gets out-muscled in the 50-50. How many times did it happen with Kobe Manu and Casemiro, just bullying him in that first half? Just relentless. Like there was no point in him being on the pitch. And same against Bodo Glimt. Like I think opposition fans want to always say like, "Oh, Foden's overrated," and it's a difficult one because when he is good, he's if anything underrated. But he is just too inconsistent. And last season was an absolute disaster, coming off winning PFA Player of the Year.
Is there an actual, so you reference about Phil Foden when he doesn't have confidence, he really doesn't have confidence. Is that to a certain extent just is that a mentality problem he has?
Yeah, I think you have to be careful because it was widely reported that he did have mental health issues last year. But I would say some players, like your De Bruyne's, like if you look out of City, like Declan Rice, those type of players, are mentally very, very strong. And that's one of their main benefits. That's why they cost 100 mil. Not just because of what they can do on the pitch, but what they can do off the pitch in terms of leadership in the changing room and what they can do on the pitch in terms of having that consistent mentality and making players play better. There are some players who just are not like that. And that's fine. You can't have a team full of 11 incredibly mentally strong players. Maybe Simeone's got it at Atletico Madrid, but that's about it, right? There are some players who are just mentally weaker. There are some players who are susceptible to confidence issues. Some players who are susceptible to losing their head at referees. There just are players like that. Phil Foden, unfortunately, is slightly mentally weak in that way. When he doesn't have a bad game, you can see after 10 minutes his head goes down. He doesn't try anything good.